What up, guys? It's your boy Victor. I'm back at it again. I'm over here heading to Taps and Caps for now. Craft Beer Haven, one of my favorite places. About to grab a beer. With a man named Ken from Better on Draft podcast. Hilarious podcast. Him and his friends are, I think, have a really unique perspective on craft beer. And I just want to hang out and chop it up and see what we can learn. Salud. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, that's good. How's that coconut as it's warming up?
Very coconut.
But is it getting better or worse as it warms?
As it warms up, it's getting a lot better. The first one was a little, hit me really, really hard in the throat. I think it's just a little too much coconut. Like, I feel like I'm almost tasting like just coconut shavings. But as it's warming up, I'm getting the malt backing, and it feels a little better than the initial taste for sure.
But that's good because I had my friends try it. I trust my friends' opinion on it. But my thing about coconut is the same way because you can overdo coconut or underdo it where you don't get it at all.
Yeah, I was just actually at the World Expo of Beer, and one of my favorite drinks there was a seltzer water from Smirnoff, which was a pina colada. And so I started keto back in August, and I'm down 70 pounds.
What? Congratulations, brother.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
So doing that, like, I've started to go more towards hard seltzers, and what's nice is that in Detroit, or in Michigan specific, we actually have a brewery that makes really good hard seltzers called Parent, which their hard seltzers called Clear Coast. So I mix them with gin or vodka typically, but going to the World Expo of Beer, like, I tried Smirnoff's hard seltzer. Labatt had a hard seltzer. I can't think of the name of the company under Labatt that does it. So yeah, like the pina colada, like, I love pina colada taste.
Well, talking about that, if we go to the beer store right around the corner for Lone Star, they have their collaboration with Manhattan Project, which is a pina colada IPA, which is phenomenal.
And what's the Manhattan Project?
Manhattan Project is a newer brewery here. They've been around for a while, but they finally opened it up in October.
Okay.
I'm completely biased. I tell people all the time they're my favorite brewery in DFW. Not to knock all my other friends who have breweries and everybody else has support, but it's absolutely my favorite. Hands down, Misty, the whole crew over there, my favorite people.
Okay.
And to me, they don't make a bad beer yet. So everybody makes a bad beer once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Yeah, but they haven't made one yet for me.
But I mean, if you like it, it's a good beer, so it doesn't matter what it is, right?
Yeah. See, on that note, well, you got a little intro to our guest this week.
What's going on?
To learn a little bit something about keto diet too. But welcome another week in Drunken Public. I'm your host, Victor Santana. We have a guest today, Ken from Better on Draft podcast.
That's correct.
What, 200 episodes?
I would say probably, like, we're hitting 180 at the end of this month, but we've had a lot of half episodes. So when there's opportunities to do episodes with guests that might be in town on, like, a Tuesday afternoon, like, for instance, I interviewed John Mayer over from Rogue Ales over in Oregon. He was in town, and it was a legit Tuesday at 1 p.m. and we're sitting drinking beers. So we don't consider them like the full episodes because we want our weekly episodes to be the full ones.
I get you.
But we've done a lot of collaborations with other beer shows like Nerds with Alcohol, Tap That AZ. I was actually in Arizona to go see a wrestling show, and one of my old hosts and friend who lives there, we hopped over to a brewery and did an episode there.
That's awesome. You know, I like doing these collab podcasts because I always like to hear little tips. And also, one thing is, I'm trying to listen to a lot of beer podcasts now. And what I find is, some of them are really interesting. Some of them are really specific about styles. Some are lackadaisy, like we are lackadaisy about it. We talk about beer, but in and out, just more social conversation over craft beer.
Yeah.
But I was trying to figure out how do we get more people, to listen to all the beer podcasts and get more people into craft beer. So I've been trying to listen to see if anybody has any good techniques and things like that.
Well, one thing very, very specific is that we need to get rid of the snobbery that's in the craft beer industry. Again, at Better on Draft, one of our sponsors, North Center Brewing, which is in Northville, Michigan, they have a motto that says, if you like it, it's a good beer. That's their motto. And it doesn't matter what style it is, because not everyone likes the same styles.
Yeah.
I do not like IPAs. no matter how many IPAs you give me, I'm not gonna like it. You guys get some of the best IPAs down here. You have Bell's, I think, gets down here with Two Hearted. You get Founders, which gets all day IPA for the sessionable for the 90-degree day it is outside.
Yeah. We get lucky sometimes out here.
So all these IPAs, like I just don't like them at all. But give me something that's a malt back, like a malt backing, like an amber, an alt beer, some type of Dunkel. Anything that's a little more on the malty, heavier side than the hoppy, bitter, piney side.
See, for me, I agree with you. We, as far as being snobby about beer, that's kind of part of it. But I fall in the same fault on that category sometimes because I'm all about stouts. So I recently, the last few weeks, people have been telling me for months or years since I started getting into craft beer. Only been a year and a half since I got into craft beer. Is to try everything. Just try it. You don't know what you like or don't like, and even if you don't like the style, you might find something that you might find appealing in this new beer.
Yeah.
But it took me so long until I went on a tour with a group of other people who've never tried these beers, and they're at a new place, these new breweries, they've never seen any of these beers, and they're gonna nail into one. They can't just have one. There's so many other tabs. Try them all. But I that's contradicting because I was the same way. So now I'm in the point where I'm drinking everything. Where every time I go, there's a beer I haven't had before, no matter what the style, I drink it.
Well,
and not judge people on it.
You see it in the craft beer industry, at least in tap houses like the one that we're in right now, which is Lone Star Taps and Caps.
Shout out to Rick.
As well as you see it in breweries, is that they're being a little more lenient in regards to giving you a taste, a try. Just like, hey, here's a little sample if you like it, if you don't.
Yeah.
Now, for instance, if I would have gotten a sample of this beer, I probably would have said no thank you. But as it's warming up, I'm liking it a lot better to where I'm probably going to have a second one. Or I'm going to order 2 beers, another one of this and a beer to drink right now, and then drink this right after.
I got into it from my friend Jennifer, the beer lady. She said something to me like, you got to try the beer like 3 sips or more to really understand the beer.
Oh, of course.
And I'm like, I really appreciate it, held on to me, but I kind of twisted it and says, fuck it, just buy the whole beer. Don't taste it. That's just something really weird.
I think in the world that we are now with beers and the costs, and a lot of these beers, depending on where you go. I went to Arizona, and the craft beer there is so cheap, it's stupid. We didn't see a beer more expensive than I think $5 or $5.50, and that was like a New England IPA, which is expensive to make.
Yeah.
So seeing those types of beers, I think it's an investment. You're investing. Now, I was explaining before we started, like I dropped 200 at Windstar earlier today. No shout out to them.
Shout out to you for going having fun.
That's an investment that you have to be willing to make, and a lot of people don't because everybody wants to stay true to what they like. And then you have the complete opposite of where I'm just going to try everything that's brand new, even if I like other things, and I'm just going to continuously try new things, which kind of shows what I'm concerned about in the craft beer industry is the disloyalty of the community. Now, there's going to be mainstays that I think are going to be here for a long time. The Goose Island Bourbon Counties, Founders KBS. But it's these other beers that are one-offs, two-offs, that from the smaller breweries that I think are going to really be hindered. And I think it's just it's the disloyalty of the customer. And the disloyalty of the customer has allowed for places like this, Lone Star Taps and Caps, to exist because you have, was it 40
About
taps?
50 taps.
About 50 taps?
Well, 50 taps, but then some of them are cider and wine.
Okay. Oh, that's perfectly fine. I love cider. I saw the mead up there. I saw Kill All the Gophers from Be Nectar, which is a meadery up in Ferndale, Michigan.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Yep, that's right. That's right. My neck of the woods. We actually interviewed one of the girls on Saturday at the World Expo of Beer.
Oh, that's awesome.
So when you have all these options and choices, for example, we were talking about mead with her, and the barrier to entry with mead is a lot more expensive than it is to beer. And how do you get people to try mead for the first time, but then try different meads? Because there are different meads. All the thing that mead is that it's just fermented in honey.
Yeah.
But there's so many, Zombie Killer is now a cider, which I learned. But there's so many different styles of mead that, just like beer, you're not going to necessarily like the first one you try, but you might like the second one. You might want something that's a little fruit forward or something maybe a little more tarty than sweet. Yeah. So having these options is great for the consumer, but it hurts a lot for the brewer itself. And the brewer that wants to scale, I should say. The small-time brewers, the ones that are just serving in-house, everything's fine. Like I think you guys have Franconia down here. Does Franconia distribute?
Outside of Texas? Don't know.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they do like Oklahoma, the surrounding states.
So like Franconia has a small distribution, but if they want to get bigger, there's such a huge leap to get to.
Well, when I first doing this on the road podcast, I met with a few sales reps from out of state, in state, and it's tough for anybody to kind of move from state to state, even though it sounds kind of weird.
Well, it's the laws. The laws and the rules are so different when you're bringing in
But
beers.
even with the laws, like they deal with that before they bring it in, but it's also after the fact that they bring it in. Like the consumer base is so, depending on the state, like Texas, a lot of stuff is referring to out of state to Texas. It's hard. A lot of people started pulling back as far as selling that many bottles here. Unless you already had a staple. You know, Clown Shoes is going to be a staple here from Massachusetts. Founders, you know, Goose Island. Those are going to be staples because they already have a foothold within the DFW or Texas community.
Okay.
But other smaller ones stopped coming here because it just wasn't making any money selling their.
You see, at least in Michigan, and I can only explain on Michigan because
No.
I've lived there my entire life.
But it also, that's why I want to hear it. I want to see the difference.
In Michigan, whenever a new brewery comes in, it's hot for a month, and then they're what we refer to as shelf turns. So the most recent one, which is part of Canarchy, which is Cigar City. Cigar
Yes.
City made it into Detroit and Michigan maybe 6 months ago. I completely forget that it's in our state now, even though whenever people would go to Florida, I would be like, hey, can you bring back a few cans of Maduro? Because that was one of my favorite beers. But now that I can get it at any other time, why bother? It was the same when Ballast Point came into town about 4 years ago, but then they also, they came into Michigan and then Constellation bought them. So there was that whole big beer, anti-big beer sentiment, but it wasn't going to affect them. People were still going to drink Sculpin. Sculpin's probably one of the most standard IPAs and IPA variants in this country. We also had it, and this is even before the big boom, 2000, I want to say 10 or 2011, is when New Belgium entered Michigan. And I used to drive from Detroit to a little bit north of Fort Wayne, which is about a 3.5-hour drive.
Yeah.
Used to make that drive by cases of Fat Tire to bring back to drink because I love that beer. I can't even tell you the last time I had a bottle of Fat Tire.
So funny you say that. So for the photo shoot before we started the podcast, we did a photo shoot. There's a picture of me drinking Fat Tire. Kind of still keep it on the page.
It's such a good beer too. It's so solid.
I never had it before the photo shoot.
That's an interesting. Well, you never had it. Did you? You were just starting to drink craft beer. You said a year and a half. And
yeah. So we've been doing it for about 2 years now. So the original point of the podcast that I did with these hosts that I was doing it with was introducing us to different styles of liquor or things we like to drink. I like liquor. My co-host like the beer.
So we should have went to a distillery because that would have been my jam.
Yeah, I love liquor. I love
Do you
whiskey.
guys have distilleries here that you can drink on premise distilleries?
We could do a tour and they let you drink there when you do a
Gotcha.
tour. Yeah, so it's kind of
the little loopholes.
Yeah. So we have a whiskey. We have a few whiskey not too far from here. We have a vodka downtown, and then I think we have a gin in Arlington, or it's gonna open in Arlington. I'm not 100% sure about that. I heard rumors. But yeah, we have a few distilleries out here.
So you like liquor?
I'm a big rum whiskey fan. So during that photo shoot, he was like, "What beer you want?" I was like, "You pick and get Fat Tire." And that's the one picture that the lady kept of us drinking beer, of me drinking beer, I should say, was the Fat Tire one.
Again, probably one of my favorite beers because what was your intro into a craft beer? And it doesn't have to be like a craft beer
Well, I've drinking beer before the podcast, but it mostly was a filler between liquor shots.
Okay, well you're not drinking a heavy beer like a Guinness. You're drinking a Miller Lite probably.
I was drinking like a Presidente, the Pilsner,
Okay.
the Dominican Pilsner.
Yeah.
I was drinking that, typical Modelo's, Coors.
Well, I mean, you're in Budweiser country, aren't you, down here?
Yeah.
There's a brewery down here.
There's a brewery down here.
I know. I did my research before.
No,
I
we
came
have
on
a
the
brewery
line.
out here. I mean, Miller plants out here. They can over here, and it's interesting. But as far as craft beer, when we were testing out the beer run, because my friend was the beer guy, he didn't want to buy beer that he knew he'd like. He was trying to get a sense for a palate. So we went to a place that's similar to this, and we just tried a bunch of beer. I remember the first beer I fell in love with is from a brewery who's no longer open now. It's called Noble Ray, and they had a beer called Baramthus, which is peanut butter forward brown ale.
Oh, you're like breaking my heart right now because I love like brown ale. Browns and alts are like my go-to.
Yeah.
Like I looked at the list for a brown before I looked for anything
They didn't have
else.
too many. They have a few weak ones that I saw there. No offense, if anybody looks at by the time you see this episode, the list would have changed anyway.
Oh yeah.
So,
Well, I was in Greenville, South Carolina, and mind you, I'm an hour and a half from Charlotte and an hour and a half from Asheville. And have you ever been to either city?
Charlotte.
Okay. First, you need to make a trip to Asheville. One of the best walking cities for breweries. You can get to about 10 to 12 breweries within a 5-minute walk.
No way. I was just super excited about New Mexico, about that same thing, but not walking, driving.
Yep.
But,
So I started at Wicked Weed. I went to the Funkatorium, and then I wound up ending at White Labs, which is a yeast cultivator. So if you
Nice.
talk to a lot of brewers and you mention White Labs, they know exactly who they are as a yeast cultivator. But what they've started to do is take in their yeast and brewing beers. So you get a lot of the same beer with different yeast strains for you to try.
wow, yeah.
So for me, I love alt beers, but I mean, could you even name one alt beer off the top of your
No.
head? Exactly.
Not even
So
to save my life right now.
It's a weird style. It's a old German style. Alt beer is basically old beer. That's what it stands for. So Alaskan Amber. Have you ever had that or no?
Yeah.
Okay. That's an alt beer. Fun fact.
I had it in Vancouver.
So they had 2 alt beers because they had 2 different yeast strains. Now, mind you, by the time I got there, I was 3 sheets to the fucking wind, eating a giant plate of poutine. And I'm like, all right, whatever.
Have Poutine up there?
Poutine, yeah.
Oh, I thought Poutine, like the New Orleans meat sausage that they have with
No,
rice.
no, poutine. French fries, gravy, and cheese curds. And then
okay.
usually a lot of it's like brisket or pulled pork on top. So,
Okay.
Yeah, it can be a full meal if you want it to be.
It sounds like a full meal right there.
It's delicious. It's a Canadian delicacy. So at least in Detroit, where I literally live a half mile to Canada. So I am closer to Canada than any other city in this country.
No way.
Yeah. So I look outside my like laundry window on one of the top floors. I could see the water in between Detroit. I could see Caesars Windsor. So I haven't gotten a chance to really try Canada's craft beer scene, which Windsor's is starting to build up a little bit.
Okay.
The problem with Windsor is that Canadian drinking age is 19. Windsor is not only a college town, but anyone that lives in Detroit and Metro Detroit, they have a passport and they're going there on their 19 from 19 to 21 to drink.
Yeah, so it's a shit show of a place.
It's always a shit show, which is why I just stick to the casino when I feel so old when I say that. Like, you kids.
No, so it's funny. I have a friend of mine. We were just doing a vlogging episode. When I moved here, I was 19, going on 20. I lived in a college town, or I lived near a college town in Denton County, called Fry Street. Like it's Denton City, but Fry Street was this main street that all the college kids drink.
Okay.
Now he wanted us to go back there. Last time I went back to that city, to that drinking area. I was 21, 22 years old. Last time I went, and I went again when I was 28, and I just seemed like stepped a foot into the environment. I was like, nah. I hear stupid conversations everywhere. I can't handle it. I'm just hearing kids thinking they know what they're talking about, don't know anything they're talking about. I was like, I can't hear it, can't do it.
That's the sound of growing up and becoming jaded. Like, get out of college. In college, you ain't jaded yet. The world has not shit on you that as hard as it does as. Well, I mean, I think you're my age. You might be a
30.
You're 2 years younger than me. But we, as not even millennials, but we are in that age to where we grew up. And while we were in middle school, 9/11 happened.
Yep.
We trying to buy a house during the giant downfall of the entire industry.
Yeah.
Like all of these things culminated after each other. The current, did you go to school at all? Mm-hmm. Where'd you go to school?
So I went to SMU for half a semester. I went to community college for half a semester, and then I just quit.
That's fair.
But I partied, so instead of me going to college, I partied in every college city here in Texas.
See, I went backwards. Like I tried school, it wasn't for me, so I just partied at all like Michigan State, University
so
of
you
Michigan.
kinda did what I did, yeah.
And then I went back when I was probably 26, 27.
Okay.
Is when I went back and got my degree.
When you start maturing up a little bit.
Yeah. Like, well, everything was online, so I was able to like manage my own schedule. Because my problem is I couldn't get to like, you need to be here from 7 to 11. No, I don't want to be at a class for 4 hours.
For me, coming from New York City to here, I've never had people buy me drinks constantly. So everybody was buying me drinks, guys, girls. They just want to hear different stories from New York City at the time. Mind you, this was almost 10 years ago. was not too many young New Yorkers here within the DFW area. It was the older New Yorkers, people with families and stuff like that, but never. You will rarely find us meet up. And then I met a few fake New Yorkers. I'm like, oh shit, what part of the city you from? They mentioned off the city. I was like,
did they say like Buffalo?
No, some people said, once they met me, they were like, nah, I'm from upstate. I'm like, okay, you're not from New York. Get out of here.
So that sounds like a lot of people that's the kind of stuff that would happen within Detroit. Like I grew up in a very affluent area of Michigan called Troy.
Okay, yeah,
but
I've never been there, heard of it.
Yeah, there's a Daimler Chrysler headquarters, there's a Delphi headquarters, there's a lot of major company headquarters in Detroit, in Troy. So I wound up moving to Detroit about 5 years ago. And the reason for that is that with my job, I was doing a lot of driving. I was doing about 30,000 miles a year. So
God damn, it's a lot, bro.
Yeah, but every major freeway that I was near, like I was able to get on, and leaving the city as opposed to going through the city when I needed to go somewhere made things a lot easier. So the only logical sense was to move into Detroit. And if you were to talk about Detroit, like 5 years ago was worse, 10 years ago was much worse, 15 years ago, which is we're getting near when WrestleMania was there, when the Super Bowl was there. So a lot of big events that it was even worse. But as the city continues to grow, you're balancing the gentrification of Detroit along with wanting to see it succeed, and it's hard to balance that because you don't want this Stan who's been there through the shit. We were talking about, the market crash and stuff. This Stan, we'll call it a barber. This barber's been downtown their entire life. They've been there. Now they're getting priced out even though they stayed in the city the whole time. They didn't leave when everyone else did.
Hard thing to see, but you see it all the time. It's gonna happen.
I think maybe that's why I drink. Like I think of all these things, and I'm like, oh man, I need another sip of beer. But we're here to talk about beer, not the gentrification of Detroit.
But
sure.
it's an interesting thing. But that's part of our life, and that's part of Drunken Public talking on influence. We talk about everything.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if I were to sit down, because I'm the kind of friendly guy where if we were both sitting up at the bar, you would be like, oh, you're from New York or you're from Detroit, and we'd start asking each other, about this type of information while we're sharing a beer.
Yeah.
I didn't even ask what beer did you just slam?
Oh, this was an IPA. It's a new, hazy IPA from Celestial, one of the newer breweries here. Haven't made a year yet. I think, to my opinion, from one being the younger ones, they make some really good hitters. I like their stouts more than I like their IPAs, but they make some really good IPAs.
What do you think? Are you guys getting hit with the New England IPA bug down here? Yeah, a lot.
It's bad. One of my hand project I was just talking about, they put a poll up like 6 months ago. It was like, okay, we want to make a new beer. What do you guys want? Another hazy IPA or a dip? I forgot the other style, but it was an interesting style and they never made it before or not produced it for mass production yet. And they're like hazy, everybody's hazy. The general population hazy. For people in the craft beer community, a little tired of it, but.
We were actually, so it was not this last year, but just the year before, we did an online voting contest on the Better On Draft Facebook page, and we put up
Which you should follow,
Yes.
link right there, follow, right here. So right above your head, pop, bam.
Got it. So with that, we had 16 head-to-head that were in distro from the state of Michigan. And not like variants of the same brewery, like in distro. And you had to be not only in distro, but available, because the winning brewery, what we did was we bought a keg and we gave it away.
Nice.
So you had to be in distro and available at this date range. So some people couldn't do it, which is fair. We had other people were like, oh, why didn't you include this brewery? I'm like, well, they never responded to me, and I want to buy a keg of their beer. Not my fault.
Yeah.
So we had this tiny brewery, which I love them to death. They're in St. Clair Shores, called Baffin. They actually won 2 online polls of ours prior, and they won this one against Old Nation, which Old Nation is like the explosion of New England IPA in Michigan. So they have a beer called M43. And they have so many different beers. So like this beer, and we actually did their double New England, which was called Boss Tweed, was in our contest.
That's a bad. Wait, first of all, you gotta give props to that. That's a badass name. That is a badass name.
So they lost to Boss Tweed, and we wound up saying screw it. We bought a keg of each, and we're like, you know what? If you're upset that they lost a contest, 1, that's your fault for not voting, and 2, why don't you come? And we did it at one of our old sponsors. Everybody got a pint of each. And you got to try them side by side or together, or you could try one at a time. So If you showed up to this restaurant and sat down, you didn't have to buy food, you didn't have to do anything. we asked everyone to tip, but we also threw $100 to
Just
the
in
staff.
case, because people are shitty sometimes.
People don't tip on free stuff.
Yeah.
So we're like, we threw 100, but we always do that for our keg parties. Like we actually have an upcoming keg party in June for a brewery called Brewery 424.
June.
It's Father's Day weekend. That's Saturday.
That Saturday. Father's weekend, we'll put the date.
It's the 14th, I believe. So they won a contest, and you want to talk about like small town brewery that had such a huge following. People were tagging each other, and we don't do like, click a poll, because I don't trust those polls.
Yeah.
People can go incognito mode and all these other things.
Fake accounts.
Exactly. So all I do is that we do use the Facebook like system. So like do the haha emoji if you like this one, or the love emoji if you like this one.
That's pretty good. Yeah,
So
yeah.
you can't, unless you have multiple Facebook accounts, and at that point, whatever. I give up.
Yeah.
So we do that, and they had almost 1,000 votes every single week of just, and mind you, small town brewery there's 370 breweries in Michigan right now. Small town brewery that,
Goddamn lot.
yeah, if you go, and I'm gonna definitely plug this one, mibeermap.com.
MyBeerMap.com.
Yep, it shows you every single brewery that's open, opening, or closed. But we also break down the ones that are distro facilities only, so you don't accidentally show up trying to drink. Because if you go to like a keg and bottle maker or a brewing facility and they don't have a tap system,
They're like, hey, you gotta get out of here, son.
they're like, what are you doing here?
That's good to know. But I think we have we're lucky in Texas. No, I'm lying. We do have about 300 overall plus, maybe. Don't quote me on that. This is
300-ish. Maybe you guys need to buy txbeermap.com.
we need to buy that. But it's but imagine how big Texas is compared
Yeah.
to Michigan. And let's spread that out to the 5 major cities. You got Dallas, DFW area. Then you have Houston,
Austin.
Austin, San Antonio, and then we got the El Paso in there. That's the 5 big ones, and everybody else between. So I know we have 300 plus, or close to it.
But it's all spread out.
So spread out.
I'll definitely show you the map when we go get refills in a
Let's
second.
get refills. On that note, let's take a quick break. We're gonna get some refills. So on that note, let's talk about your podcast.
Yeah.
So I know you ran a little bit of a different podcast before, and then you started this one up.
Yes, so the website's still up. You can go check it out. It's called Radio Influence. So I started a podcasting company called Radio Under the Influence, RUI.
Okay.
And from there, we shortened it to Radio Influence because I think it just rolled really right off the tongue. So radioinfluence.com still up. It's more sports heavy than anything and really MMA heavy. So if you're a blood sport kind of person, go check them out. They have a lot of podcasts there. From there, after about 4 years of running that, I was running a show on there, my own show called 40 Ounce Fridays.
Yeah, I still love the name. That's probably the best name I've heard of a podcast in a while.
So in regards to 40 Ounce Fridays, we would talk beer, wrestling, and MMA. That was like our shtick. Like we started with wrestling, went to MMA, and started, we would always be drinking. Like me and my friend Dan, we just drank all the time. Like wherever we'd be doing, we'd be drinking. We go bowling, we'd be drinking. We go to a brewery, we'd be drinking. We'd be at home, we'd be drinking. So him and I would just always drink like beer together. So I folded Radio Influence, sold it to another guy, and I'm like, okay, I'm not in the mood. So about a year later, I'm at a local wrestling show, and the guy who owns Podcast Detroit comes up to me, and he's like, hey, we're starting a studio. We know you used to do a show. Do you want to do a show? And I was with my buddy Dan, and we were kind of on the fence about it. We didn't want to do it, but we're like, let's think about it, because we didn't want to do 40 Ounce Friday at least.
Yeah.
We didn't watch MMA anymore. We barely watched wrestling, so it was
It'd be tough to jump right back into it and make a show about it.
That exact show. Like we wouldn't know anything about MMA in the first place because the landscape had changed so much within 2 years. So we're okay. We come back, and about a week later, the guy's like, hey, what did you think about my offer? And we said, sure. And we had come up with Better on Draft. Now, Better on Draft, I had started prior with another friend, but we couldn't do it because he was a dealer at MGM Casino in Detroit. So we were getting hammered at like 2 p.m. on a Wednesday.
Yeah, it's not good.
No, not at all. Not good for the liver. Not good for the marriage, as you can see. Well, that wasn't the reason. I'm much happier.
It's her. Yes, much happier.
But no, it's not the thing that a man or a husband, a person should do. So we were drinking. Like at one point, we did a taste test to see if we could see the difference between a 4-day-old bottle of Two Hearted from Bell's or a 4-week-old. because somebody was complaining online that 4 weeks was too old for an IPA.
Bullshit.
And out of 6 people that day, because we recorded at my friend's house, we had 6 people over. Nobody could find the one new bottle. So we had 3 old and 1 new, and you had to find the new one. Nobody could figure it out. I'd say we should have at least had 1, but
Not really, because in my opinion, it's all about how it's kept that really affects it more than the actual date.
we bought it from the same store.
No, not you. I'm talking about the
One
person.
in front of each other.
No, I'm not saying you.
I know. I'm giving you the heads up of like this
how
is
you
what
guys
we
did it?
Yeah. So the store knew about it, so they kept one in the cooler in the back. You know, who wants to hide a old
good
IPA?
beer.
Yeah. Well, Two Hearted's like sells like water up there. It's everywhere available. So when he hit a 6-pack for us, then the new 6-pack came, he called me, he's like, hey, we got it. I'm like, all right, we're recording today. So doing that kind of stuff we couldn't do on like weekdays. So we came up with Friday nights, 7 o'clock, and our first interview was with the president of the Michigan Brewers Guild.
Nice.
So he is a brewer over at Rochester Mills Brewing over in Rochester Hills, Michigan. And it just kind of kicked off. We had sponsors right away. They loved our idea, loved our thoughts, and wanted to hop on. And since then, I mean, we're on episode, so by the time this comes out, you said in 2 weeks, so 180 should be out. And
Oh, wow.
that would be with Rusted Crow, which is a distillery in Michigan, in Detroit. So we've been bringing on wineries, cideries, distilleries. I actually, since we talked about Bee Nectar, wanted you to take a sample of the mead.
Oh,
So this is Kill All the Gophers from Bee Nectar. There we go. So it's a pun on Caddyshack. There we go.
This thing just smells dangerous.
So they have multiple variants of this mead too, but this is probably one of the most not sought out, but well available meads. So your guests that are listening that are into Dallas or fans that are outside of Dallas, it's very, very easy for them to find bottles or at least get bottles because you can order it. It was 40 something. We got a 6.2% ABV. So yeah,
Okay,
it's
you
a
can kinda
pear
smell
mead.
it. You can smell it, but you don't feel it
No.
at all. But it's a very interesting mead because it's not too sweet at all.
No, I think the peaches as well as the lemon kind of like the tartness of the lemon and then the peach kind of brings down any type of honey sweetness like a sugary sweet.
But then it's not too tart either because I've had the other way too, which is
Oh, yeah.
I don't want my lips to pucker.
Like a warhead.
Yeah, because I don't like sours. But I think this is a beautiful combination because you got the. It smells, first of all, it smells delicious. Then you have what I feel in my opinion. Oh, excuse me, I hit the mic. What I feel in my opinion is I get the sweet coming first, and in the midst of the sweet, I have the sour gently come through to cut the sweet off, and then fades gently towards the back of my tongue.
It's so
That is delicious.
Probably one of my favorites. They also have one called the Dude's Rug, which is a play on The Big Lebowski.
I like these names.
And then Zombie Killer, which is their cherry sizer, which is kind of like a half mead, half cider.
Okay.
They realized that mead is a lot harder to get into states than cider is. So they actually redid their entire recipe for Zombie Killer a couple of years ago so that they could distro it a lot faster in other places. Because there's, again, different rules in regards to crossing mead, because mead has different laws than cider, than beer, than wine.
Well, I thought, for me, for my minimum understanding, correct me, cider falls under wine, which wine is easier to distro.
So in the TTB world, so like the US category, yes, it does. Same with mead. Mead would fall under wine. But when you get a little bit further, it's all based on what the main active ingredient is. So for instance, if you look at bourbon versus whiskey, what's the difference? They're both technically whiskey, but one has more corn than the other.
Yeah, I think whiskey is made with 51%.
Yeah, 51%, and then bourbon is under 51.
Yeah, because we have 51. I forgot what it is.
I believe. I could be wrong.
It has to because I just had a conversation last night with arguing about this because we had to look it up. Because the reason why Scotch is different from everything, all the same thing.
Scotch has to be made over in Scotland.
It has to be made in Scotland. It has to be, but it also has to be barreled a certain way. Same thing with
Champagne has to be made in Champagne, France.
Yeah,
Like
but,
there are so many rules for names. So you have it's considered a sizer, I believe, which is basically a mead cider. If they had, I believe Dana, the girl from Be Nectar, the Mead Fairy, as she calls herself,
The Mead Fairy, that's a good name.
told us it's basically as if like a cider and a mead had a baby. That's what it is. But again, they needed the apples to be 51% or whatever to allow it to be distroed a lot easier. So sure, yeah, under the TTB, it's considered under a winemaker's license. And in Michigan, it's considered a winemaker. But other states have different laws in regards to importing these types of beers because you can look at malternatives or malt liquor type beers versus beers. Like your standard craft beers. Everyone has different rules, laws, and regulations. And with the footprint that they're trying to get, they have to go into the states that might not necessarily have the best laws in regards to importing.
I know, now this is from a biased standpoint. I think Texas has the weirdest ones that I get, but I'm also here, so I don't hear all the other weird laws. But I think Texas is pretty tough. Utah's pretty tough.
Yeah, Utah is tough, which is crazy because they have Epic over there,
Yeah.
which makes some of the biggest beers out there.
That's why they brew out of Denver.
Yep.
To help compensate from being from Utah.
Yeah, because Utah still has a 3-2 law.
Yeah.
In regards to Michigan, the only major rules, which I think is kind of standard across the country, is that you can't sell an alcoholic product for less than what it was cost to be made.
Yeah.
Meaning you can't have free. Michigan also has laws in regards to festivals to where they can't have all-you-can-drink festivals. So everything has to be tokened, and each drink has to have a certain token cost. So for instance, if I go to a beer festival in Indiana or I go to GABF in Denver, it's all you can drink with the price of admission. Whereas if I go to the Michigan Brewers Guild Festival, I get 15 tokens and then I have to buy more tokens if I want more beer.
But technically, it's all you can drink because you just got to buy more tokens.
Yes, but it's not all inclusive.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Yes, it's all you can drink, but it's not all inclusive. Like you have to pay attention.
You can't do it from Jump Street. Like, okay, I'm gonna pay $100 for this ticket because I'm gonna drink all day.
Yeah.
You can't sell it that way.
Now at the Brewers Guild festivals, which Michigan has 4 of them a year, extra tokens are 50 cents. So if I told you a flight was $3, you would be buying flights everywhere for 6 tasters.
Tokens. That's interesting. Why you guys have 4? Because we have 1 a year here.
So we have one in Detroit, we have one in Grand Rapids, so that's the east side of the state and the west side of the state.
Nice.
We then have the summer one, which is in Ypsilanti, which is Ann Arbor, basically, so U of M, so right in the center of the state. And then we also have one in Marquette, which is in the Upper Peninsula, which is about a 8 to 9 hour drive from Detroit.
Okay, yeah, that's deep. That's deep in there.
So in Michigan, kind of like Texas, not as big as Texas, but you can still be driving 8, 9, 10 hours and still be in the state. That's how big our state is. And the only point of connection from the UP is either through Wisconsin or through we have the Mackinac Bridge, which is the big bridge, pretty much right at the tip of the middle finger if you hold your hand up and try to figure out where you are in Michigan.
I like that. I like that reference. But I would maybe because we're still kind of younger, I don't know, or smaller per se. These are why we only do 1 a year. I have yet to talk to the Texas Craft Beer Guild, the Brewers Guild, I should say. Eventually, we'll set that up and do one. I still haven't talked to everybody yet, but I don't know. It's interesting. I would think it'd be more appealing if they did multiple spots because from here to Houston is 4 hours. From here to Austin is about 4 hours. And then from here to San Antonio, that's 6-7 hours, and then it gets bigger and bigger as we go further out. Mm-hmm. You know, so to have one in Austin every year is tough, but it's the capital, so they do it there. You know,
I would think they'd be able to do it at least the big epicenter. Maybe not El Paso because it's kind of off and to the side, and the southwest part of the state.
Most far off than all the other like bigger cities.
Yeah. But all these other cities like DFW, like the DFW area, the Austin area, even Austin, San Antonio, if you want to make it as its own collective.
Yeah.
Or Houston, having these different pockets, you could create festivals around that area. But for us, like a Brewers Guild festival, we only have about 120 breweries. And during the winter one, which is the big one, so February in Michigan outside. Not the most appealing. I mean, you're from New York. Just imagine New York in February outside.
Well, you guys get all of it gets cold up there. I always say I say I know New York cold, which is different from like Denver, Michigan, you know.
So Grand Rapids has the lake effect. So that giant Lake Michigan brings a lot of cold, a lot of snow, and a lot of rain.
It's really
so
rough.
it's a really interesting cold over there. But they usually have about 1,100 to 1,200 beers available at that festival.
See, the Texas one is in September, I believe. I will correct myself if I'm wrong, but I think it's in September.
Okay.
September, October time frame is the Texas one in Austin, and it's in Austin, so it's coolish. Still kind of springy, warm fall weather for us. We don't really have much of a winter here.
Yeah, I come every year. I actually come to Dallas.
Nice.
I go to QuakeCon because id Software is based out of Dallas, Texas. So I would come every August. Like I'll be back here actually in 2 months, 2.5 months in July for QuakeCon. And what's nice is that we stay inside at the convention center.
Yeah, you have to. You can die.
And
sorry.
what's great is that you guys actually have something that we just started getting, and that's alcohol delivery.
Yeah.
Because you have Drizzly down here, plus I think a few other companies do alcohol delivery. Shipped just started it like 6 months ago. And it's still a pain in the ass to get alcohol or good alcohol. Like, you can't get good. You're getting whatever's at Meyer, which isn't a bad choice, but...
I mean, if you don't want to drive, fine.
Yeah. Like, if I'm having a party and I want to go, but I know I'm, already passed out, like, drunk, or I don't want to leave everyone here by themselves.
Yeah.
Like,
we're not going to do DUI because we don't drink and drive on this podcast.
No, you might spill your beer.
Yeah, exactly. So we take a lift.
My friend tells me that joke all the time. Never drink and drive because you might spill your beer. I used to always, do you drink when you watch TV, or?
It depends.
Okay. I've kind of cut out all drinking at home.
I usually don't drink by myself.
Okay.
So if I'm home by myself, I typically 99% of the time I don't drink.
What if you're capping off a night when you're out drinking with friends, you come home and you're feeling a little buzz, and you're like, yeah, I'll have one more while I'm home. After you've lifted home.
I'm already at that state, why not, Depends also how I feel. Because if I cut myself off, I'm going downhill fast. I'm like, if I make it home, I'm dizzy, I'm like, oh, I made it just in time. Going down, my poor dog.
I always, at least for the show, if there's a big show, so we have, do you guys get Griffin Claw down here? I think they're Michigan only.
I don't think so. That name does not sound familiar whatsoever.
So with Griffin Claw, they do a almost kind of like Goose Island. They have a Black Friday release called Flying Buffalo.
Okay.
And we had Griffin Claw on Black Friday, and they brought all 8 Flying Buffaloes. So think these are 14 to 15% beers. They're coming in 16-ounce cans, and 4 of us did that plus some.
Some more.
And that was the first time I've ever, like, all right, I got, not the first time, but like that was one of the times I'm like, man, I got to Uber home, like, because I reached a point, and I think you realize it, like, if I have any more sips, we're over. And we're done.
I'm going down.
And that was at, mind you, my show starts at 7 Eastern. That was at like 7:45 is when I had that. I'm like, okay, I guess we're just going over.
The first time that happened on this show, this is what made the show change from a drunk show to a beer community show. Was not Michael Petticolas, which is one of our staples of craft brewery in DFW area. They make really great beer. Velvet Hammer is a red ale.
What's it called?
Velvet Hammer.
Oh, we have one of those in Michigan. Might be a C&D right there.
No, we might put them next to each other and see what's up. But they make really good beer. I like them a lot. But when they were the first brewery we ever had on the show, we had guests on before, but never had another brewery, and we were just like, okay, we reached out. The biggest brewery in DFW, one of the bigger breweries, was like, fuck it, let's do it. So they came on, they bought a cooler full of growler beers, and they make big boy beers. And they were like, well, we're here to drink. Our show's only an hour. We finished 2 growlers in an hour, and they're like, okay, we think we're gonna wrap it up. They're like, oh, we're here to drink. We killed up all the growlers, and then afterwards, I'm like, I can't drive home. I gotta eat. Lucky for us, there was a restaurant downstairs, and you can see the whole crew, the whole staff that was in the studio, sitting at the bar, eating food, contemplating life at 3 o'clock. And I said 3 o'clock with 4 fingers. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We're sitting there at a restaurant. People just leaving work. We were like, what the fuck we just do?
Yeah, I definitely have had that with like brewers. Brewers come in and they want to bring in their big guns because they're getting exposure.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we started Better on Draft. Is that one, we wanted to learn about the industry. We were craft beer fans, but we didn't brew beer. Well, one of us did, but we didn't really brew beer. We didn't know much about beer, so we wanted to like dive into the community. And when we got into the fan community, we learned, and I don't know if it's the same in Dallas, I can only speak in Detroit and Michigan, it is the most toxic people in the world.
No, this is why I fell in love with craft beer.
And because of the toxic people,
No,
or because...
I'll tell you why. Finish your part. I'll tell you
Okay.
why I fell in love with craft beer.
So diving into that and realizing how toxic it was. So we started off as we didn't want to be a drunk show, but go for it.
Oh, thank you. It's so good, by the way. This meat is delicious.
Oh, this is, I think...
That's meat. It's a raspberry stout.
That's you too, okay. Oh, then give me that then. Screw you. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I'll share. It was delicious.
So yeah, we started as a drunk. Like we were getting a lot drunker than we should have been in regards to but we were having a lot of fun. Like the guests were having fun, we were having fun, everyone was having fun. But we're here to do content for the internet, not for the person that's in front of us.
Yeah.
So we could do a write-up and that'd be a lot better. But no, we want to do audio. So getting into the communities and talking about it, if you didn't have the best, or for instance, I'll always use like KBS or Oberon. You guys get Oberon down here from Bell's. God damn it, if not for fucking every single Oberon day, I have to hear it was much better last year. Or, oh, I remember when it was this good. Or, like, that's the kind of shit that I've gone from being in all of these beer groups to all the way down to one. I'm in one beer group. And that's because I could post a Miller Lite and they'd be like, cheers. And that's it. And
That's interesting. I get what you're saying now, yeah.
like, and it's the whale hunting snobbery. God forbid you make a trade or offer a trade and you don't know the trade value and you get ripped into. So for instance, if you don't know your bottle's worth $12 and the bottle that you're looking for is worth $17, and you say, oh, I want 1 for 1, holy shit, are you going to get flamed on this board? And I went, like, it was just so much toxic beer drinkers that I'm like, I'm done. Like, I don't need that. And once I've gotten rid of it, mind you, I need them to listen to my show, and I appreciate you listening.
All the guests on all our shows, thank you for listening all the time.
But to be honest, I don't think a lot of them listen to the shows like ours.
As far as
I
beer
think a lot of them, I think a lot of them listen to. I don't want to call them snobby because I don't know them personally, but the beerists.
Well, that's why I made the statement earlier. How do we get more? So, to make that conversation full circle for the beer snobs, I'm glad you got that part of it out of you, so that stress is down.
Yeah.
But B, you don't placate to them. Same thing for us in DFW and any beer industry or beer community. I feel like there's those people who are who've been in craft beer for a couple of years, maybe since the beginning, quote unquote, and they only go for the big bad things, the biggest mountaintops, and they will shit on everything else. That's fine. I lead them into their own world, but that's not why I fell in love with the craft beer community. I fell in love with the craft beer community for all the people who work within the craft beer community, and none of them are like that. From these people who work at this tap handle, from people who sales reps, from people who are brewers, they don't act like that. So when I say I fell in love with the craft beer community, I fell in love with the people who make it or who are involved with shipping it, making it, or promoting it. Those are all the sweetest, nicest people, and they don't care what you drink. And if you have a question, they don't even make too fuss about it. Oh, you don't know what a malt beer is? Okay, let's sit you down. What do you know about a beer? Okay, that's what the ingredients of typical ales make. That's what the typical single malt, like a malt. I said single malt. That's a bourbon. Sorry. A malt beer basis, and they have a conversation with you. That's what I fell in love with. As far as the snobbiness, you can't worry about that.
No, and there's plenty of shows for people that want that. And again, like if you listen to, say, Tap That AZ, or you listen to Cheers Charlotte, lot more casual kind of conversation like we're having, conversations like you have. Like for us, we're very casual, but we bring in Unibrew, we bring in Rogue Ales, Founders, Bell's, New Belgium, Great Lakes Brewing. We bring in a lot of big guns, but the whole goal is, one, to tell a story. I want you to tell me your story. I want you to be like, hey,
Exactly.
how did you get into talking to Travis Fritz, who's the head brewer of Old Nation. Mind you, Travis makes some of the best true to style beers, and we're talking Vienna lagers, alt beers. They even have, I don't think you get it in New York. I know it definitely doesn't come down here, but there is a type of dessert called a bumpy cake.
No, do not get that in New York.
And they made a bumpy cake stout, which is like a chocolate, a little bit of cream type of stout. And that he was really good at everything he did.
Nice.
But his brewery was going through troubles because they scaled so big, yet his beer was not scalable beer. A Vienna lager is not something that you're going to sell tons of. It's an IPA.
Yeah.
It's a regular stout, not a pastry stout, as we call. Pastry stouts are huge now, but
It's also expensive on the brewer side.
100%. But again, in regards to what is selling, what isn't. So he took a chance on this beer called M43, and if you get a chance to have it, it is a beer, I wish I brought one just for you to try. I think when I come back in July, I'm going to call you and I'm going to bring you a fresh M43, and you're just going to be able to have it.
Well, we make a vlogging episode out or something out of it, but that'd be awesome. And also, I'll try to find something over here that you might want and try to make sure I have it for you.
We will, but going back, like Travis was scared. He owned the brewery. He was the head brewer, and when we had him on before M43 took off, and you want to talk about a guy who was ranking around 150 in production in the state of Michigan, to all the way to I think 6 in a year. So he had been open for years.
That is
and
a massive jump.
Now, mind you, 1-2 is always going to be Bell's Founders. 3-4-5 is going to be Atwater, New Holland, which you guys get down here, and Arcadia, which is a big distro within the state because they make a lot of easy entry beers.
Okay.
So Atwater, Arcadia, really easy entry, true to not true to style, but easy drink. If you I don't drink craft beer. All right, well let me give you an Atwater Purple Gang Pils. You might like that a lot more than.
It might ease you into it.
Exactly. And then they get Double Decadent, which is a sweet brown ale. They have all these great beers to try, but it's not I'm gonna go search for it anywhere I go. No, it is what it is, and it's what the industry needs is those entry level beers.
Exactly. Yeah.
They need, and that's why I'm always everyone hates it. Big beer, I don't give two shits. Leinenkugel has its place in our entire world because Shandy's is what people will drink to then realize, Bud, Miller, Coors are not my 3 options. Or, we're down here, so Modelo, Corona.
Yeah, Modelo, Corona,
a little more.
Dos
Equis. So you have all these other options. So we need your Leinenkugel. We need the Crafties. We need Killian's Irish Red. We need Shock Top. We need beers that are mass-produced by major companies that aren't regular. Budweiser 1886 or whatever that amber is. I liked it. Don't judge me.
I've been on this podcast drinking the Bud Light Orange that they released last year.
How was that?
It was very orangey, but it's better than anything else they had on Bud Light level. I do really appreciate a well-made beer, and that's what I feel like craft beer is. So if you get someone who says, I'm not into craft beer, you have to give them some entry levels. You can't A, write them off, B, give them the biggest and baddest hitters in craft beer because that's going to be such a big deep dive into it.
Well, you guys have here from Founders, Backwoods Bastard. That's not something you can give someone right off the bat.
No, but
Founders also has Green Zebra up here, which is something you could, which is their watermelon goza.
Yeah, depending on the person, you might go something with sweet. I just saw Key Lime Pie pop through here. That's also really easy drinking beer. Does it have a beer flavor? Of course, it's a beer, but it's an ale that has kind of a sweet back to it. So someone who's not into craft beer, you drink something like that, they like sweet drinks, they might sip on that and be like, okay, I might like craft beer, maybe the sweeter side of it. You gotta know A, your audience, and B, don't knock anybody for what they do.
And that's, you could knock the big guys. I've been told how much I suck, ABI's cock. I don't know if this is a R-rated. We got one that we can do. No, but that's the thing is that because I could sit here and tell you one of the best made beers in the world is Budweiser. And it's not because it is the best beer, the best tasting beer, or anything like that, because between the 8 or 10 breweries I think they have within the state, wherever you get a Budweiser, it tastes the same.
You know who made that point for me? There's a brewery here called Legal Draft. Now I knocked them for not having the greatest beers, and that's my fault for saying that. But talking to the owner, doing a tour with the owner, and picking his brain about the plan that he had for himself and his company, you get to realize he was trying to make a profit like everybody else is, but as quick as possible. So he took a note from Budweiser and the bigger boys. It says, because he was like, if you go to Budweiser anywhere around the world, they make beer. It tastes the same every single time, anywhere you go, no matter the water, the location, the altitude. And that's very difficult to do and replicate that taste around the world. So you gotta respect them for that. And it's a well-made beer out of that respect. Because no matter where you go, it's going to taste the same.
Yeah.
So you have to respect that. But is that something for you? It may not be. But you have to acknowledge they do something really well.
I agree, and you don't have to respect their politics or their business plan or the things that they do, but in regards to
The beer making.
the beer making, they are one of the best.
Yeah, and he put that in my head. And also, you can't knock a brewery if they make light, sessionable beers for the masses because they want to sell more. That's their business. That was their business plan for Legal Draft, and I respected that. But you know what happened when they felt comfortable and established? They started barrel aging beers. They started showing what they could really do versus the easy drinking beers.
I think you have to have, like, it's hard to take a full-on lineup of beers and stick to being either all sessionable or all heavy beers. Like, for instance, I chatted with and I believe it's Lumber Barons out in Michigan, and none of their beers are over 6%. But I've also had Hoppin' Frog out of Ohio in studio. None of the beers are under 6%. So you have one brewery, nothing's over 6, one brewery, nothing's under 6. And like Hoppin' Frog, I don't think you guys get Hoppin' Frog.
I haven't heard that name before.
So they have their Doris and their Taurus, which is their double oatmeal raisin imperial stout, I believe.
You have me at raisin.
What's that?
Oatmeal raisin.
So they have these high, heavy-hitting beers to where we say 6%. Most of their beer, like their shandies were at 6%.
That's impressive.
It's their other beers that are at 8, 10, 12, 14. One of the few times that I've ever been drunk off one bottle was like their double pumpkin ale. Pumpkin ales, oh man.
I hate pumpkin ale. I love them and hate them at the same time because a lot of people do it bad, but I like the trend because some of the, in my opinion, the better breweries do it well. Better is subjective, by the way. Like what I think is better doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just subjective. So it's my taste buds. I'm like, oh, I really like Martin House Pumpkin Ale.
But if someone who's listened to your show enough, they're gonna understand your palate because you've said the beers you like, the beers you don't like. Like for instance, if I sat down and I drank a Bell's Too Hard and I said, I don't like it, nobody's gonna be offended because they're like, well, 1, you're an idiot, and 2, it's an IPA.
Well, what I've learned, what I have from meeting and doing the brewery, I don't know if you're the same way, but meeting these people and being part of the community, I learned to respect how hard it is, because this is the reason why I don't homebrew or attempt to say I'm a brew beer one day, because I've seen the process and it's absolute shit. I do not want to be involved in that process.
Have you brewed a beer before?
I have never brewed a beer. I've seen the process, and I may do it for a show one day, but as far as like desire to make one, never. I've seen it done. I see it's an all-day thing. It's not easy on a small scale. It's manageable, but it's not easy. And then I've seen it on a massive scale, and that's a shit ton of work. And I respect it, I'm acknowledge it, and I'm acknowledge that they're working hard. So for me, what I will always differ, I will always try to be honest to people who listen to me. While I'm blogging or doing the podcast, I will always tell them, if it's a well-made beer, it's a well-made beer. But I'll tell you what I don't like about the beer and what I do appreciate about the beer. And I try to make it balanced. If there's more negatives than positive, you take it for what it is. If there's more positive than negatives, again, you take it for what it is. But I'm always going to say it's a well-made beer. Now, if it's a poorly made beer, which I've ran into recently, I would say that's not really. It's something's missing. They're missing something here, either from my taste buds or what I'm recognizing. But it's something missing here, and it's not what they wanted. It's off flavors, something, I don't know.
Do you rate beers?
I used to. I don't do it anymore. I don't rate beers.
I do a beer journal whenever I'm on Untapped. So when we drink on our show,
I rate them like I write notes. If I'm home, I'll write notes. But
you
that's about
go
it.
further than me.
Yeah.
So for Untapped, we just check into the beers that we have just so we can keep track of what we've had. We don't put any rating. And then for me, like I have a 3-level scale of rating. I have a 5 if I like it, a 4 if I want to try it again, and a no rating if I don't like it. The reason for that is that one, that I don't make the mistake, especially if it's an expensive beer, that I don't buy that beer again or try it unless I'm looking at it like, yeah, maybe I want to try it again. But paying attention to that a lot, like that 4, or maybe I had a beer that was really bitter and it destroyed my palate prior. Let me try it again later.
Yeah.
So doing this, one, it doesn't affect the brewery ratings because as much as they don't initially care, it matters. So it's two different things. It matters because people who use Untapped and look at ratings and care about ratings are going to look for a beer. Whereas it doesn't matter what you or I vote because one, the aggregate's going to not skew too much, but two, it's one of those things to where why rate a beer bad if it's not your style?
And that's my biggest component with people who rate beers because they don't like the style. But sorry.
Well, no. If you look at beer ratings and stuff, like, oh, I give you a half, and it's I'm not a fan of IPAs, but you're rating a beer a half a point. So they care because it matters, but they don't care what people say too much because they've sat down with every single Joe Schmo who sat at the table who has brewed a home brew once in their life, and they know everything about brewing. So they just listen and go. But what I had learned from a brewer is that the brewers have a page that they can get all their negative reviews in a line and see all their terrible, like, funny reviews.
I did not know that.
Neither did I until January. So, and you can steal this idea for down here, but we'll use it up in Detroit. We're gonna do brewers read mean reviews and have brewers show up at the next festival we go to, and with like 3 or 4 reviews they want to read out loud and do like the Jimmy Fallon.
Mean tweets.
Jimmy Kimmel, reads mean tweets.
Oh, they're the same person at this point.
I don't know about that. I mean, one was on SNL, one was on The Man Show.
Yeah, who was better at The Man Show? No, I'm playing. I like The Man Show.
The Man Show with Adam Carolla, and then it was Doug Stanhope. Whatever happened to him?
He had his own show, or had his own show on Netflix. I don't know what happened.
Did he?
Yeah.
Because Adam Carolla obviously is still doing Dr. Drew, I think, stuff.
Yeah.
Jimmy Kimmel, obviously. Joe Rogan, who was the third of the 4 hosts.
Yeah.
I think he's doing something about podcasts.
I've never heard of Joe Rogan before. I've heard of Joe Rogan Experience. I think it's a different guy, though. But no, I think Doug Stanhope, he's still doing stand-up comedy, because he has he was just here in Dallas not too long ago. This stupid suit, he wears these baggy suits, is so ugly. But he's still, I don't know, but he's still doing the thing. I don't know if I'm confusing from Adam Carolla, who had a show on Netflix.
Okay.
Then Doug Stanhope just doing his stand-up and had a podcast.
What do you listen to when you're not listening to beer podcasts?
Well, I'm trying to make myself listen to beer podcasts because we had like a quick snippet earlier. Is because I want to know how to get more people in. I think that mean reviews is something hilarious. If you don't mind, we might use it here.
Go for it. We don't have it trademarked.
I know, but we work out a deal. Like, not a deal, but we work it out with you guys and see, like, because I think it's funny. I want the point of this show. It's I like the beer community, so I want to highlight the beer community as much as possible. B, I want to get more people to discover beer. Like, I ran into beer. Like, this show was just accidental. It grew to be accidental. So how can I get more people to get into it? Has to be funny, has to be entertaining. It's tough. I'm not that entertaining as a person, but I need to try to figure out how to do it. And I need more people to do beer podcasts that's entertaining.
Well, I mean, entertaining shows, obviously, Better on Draft, betterondraft.com, Spotify, iTunes.
Links in the description.
Nope, not up there that time.
No, we could pop up the episode I just watched, put that right there.
There you go. That's probably the Odd Side episode right up there.
And then, that was the Mother's Day. Oh, the Odd Side. That would be the most recent one. That's
Odd
right.
Side, yeah. Do you guys get Odd Side down here?
I want to say yes, because I've seen them at a few bottle shares, but I don't know if it's because it's at a bottle share or because we get it down here.
None of their beers are too like heavy duty, like bottle share beers, I would say.
Well, because we get there's 3 main big public bottle shares here. There's multiple little private ones that people do that only like kid in groups and stuff like that. But as far as here at DFW, we have 3 or 4 big name guys we try to include people who into craft beer, mid-level people, and brand new people to get people into the community. So those are the bottle shares that you might get some ones that like, oh, that's not a really big boy beer, but person A, you don't know, and we don't shame nobody, so everybody's welcome, whatever you can bring.
That's the one thing, at least with the people that I've surrounded myself in bottle shares, like I brought beer and I was really worried, like I think you talked about on your the last show that I listened to, which was the I Don't Know beer.
Yeah, like Alan, a great beer guy.
Yeah, the first time I went to a major bottle share, I went to a Kentucky Derby party, which we had a 6-year vert of KBS. So, mind you, we're all doing bottle shares along with the main prize, which is the 6-year vert KBS.
Yeah.
So I brought a couple bottles, and I'm like, I'm worried about what I bring, and everyone is excited for what I bring because it's not what everybody else brings, and that's kind of, I think, what excited them a little bit, because I buy what I like, and I don't buy what I don't like. Like, I'm not gonna buy a beer just to sit on it. Like, I've had brewers on here, and they're like, when we brew a beer, we want you to drink it.
No, same here. If people are weird, I try to be like that weird guy to sit on a beer. Like, I don't like the style, but I'm gonna sit on it and age it and see if I like it later on.
The only time I'm ever gonna age is because it's my last one and I don't necessarily want to drink it just yet. Like, I have a beer that I love, and anytime somebody goes to Florida, I always make sure they get it because it sits right on the shelf in Florida. It's called I'm So Excited, I'm So Scared from Funky Buddha. It's a reference to the
Funky Buddha.
It's the caffeine episode of Saved by the Bell. It's a reference to that.
I was thinking Fluffy.
No, not Gabriel Iglesias. So it's I'm So Excited, I'm So Scared by Funky Buddha. Probably one of the best beers that I've ever had. So I have one bottle left, but like I brought out a bottle. I went to a friend's house it was the Kentucky Derby this year. Different friend, different thing. So his wife loves No Rules from Parent. So I went to No Rules Day this year, grabbed a bottle because they don't distro that beer anymore. They just have a celebration in-house.
Okay.
So I went there, got the bottle, and I always buy one for her because that's her favorite beer. So I'm there, buy it. So we wound up having like a 3-year vert of No Rules. We had that beer. They all got tanked. I don't know how. I think they were like drinking shots in between drinks because I
would do, guys.
I thought I was keeping up with them. I wasn't. But like you could tell near the end, and I'm like, well, I'm driving now, so we're just gonna go to water or maybe a seltzer or something that's maybe like 2 or 3%.
That's very responsible of you.
I've driven more times than I care to admit under the influence.
We don't admit that. We don't do that. We don't drink and drive.
Way past the
we take a lift.
No, it's way past. I'm not gonna get arrested or anything.
No, there's no statute of limitation.
But again, it's mistakes that you've realized you've learned.
Exactly.
And when we were younger, dumber, and thought we were invincible, exactly. And even with friends getting into drunk driving accidents on the receiving end. I've never had a friend get into a drunk driving accident. They were like the receiving end for sure. And like even that didn't stop me. And just understanding your limit. And to be honest, that's what I use Untapped for the most. Because you go to a lot of places, they don't have digital pour, which you guys have here at Lone Star and Caps. They don't have
digital pour.
They don't have digital pour, so a lot of them don't have the ABVs. So you're guessing.
That's the bad part.
I don't remember where we were.
No, you were telling a story. Well, we were on a beautiful tangent about drinking stories and bringing stuff to bottle share. So you and your friends had a
So we had a bottle share. So we had I got a chance to share that beer with friends, and so I believe there's 2 different types of cellar people in the world. There's one, like a friend of mine, where if you went into a cellar and saw a beer and said, "Man, I love this beer," his response is, "Let's drink it." Not, "Oh, I'm saving it for a no, it's let's drink it. Let's go. Oh, this looks interesting. Let's crack it open. Let's see what it has. Do we need to refrigerate it for a little bit? All right, well, we'll refrigerate it."
Yeah.
That's the good kind of cellar player. The other one is like the one that just continues to build his collection. And there's no idea when they're going to be able to drink this all because most of these beers are probably 16 to 18% beers. You're not going to be able to drink more than 1 or 2 a night. So, when you have 400 bottles, what's the point?
I agree with that. Sorry about that. So when I first did my first bottle share, everybody's nervous at their first bottle share. it would be private or big public one. Regardless of what the level it is, you're always nervous. Like, is this beer good enough to bring? For the most part, most likely not, unless someone told you to bring this beer. It's never the best beer of all time. But you bring what you have, and you come and enjoy the experience. That's the whole point of bottle shares. And I learned that through these people I've met through bottle shares who sell their beer, but not because they want to sell a beer because I'm saving this for, like you said, for a special occasion. It's only because, I know if you hold this for 3-6 months, it tastes way better. So just give it, we're not there at that price point.
I disagree with you. You 100% disagree.
Well, in my opinion, whatever beer, I'm gonna trust a beer person who will tell me about it, but I'm willing to drink whatever.
So hold on. I'm gonna explain to you the reason I disagree with you, and that I feel that I think you need to change your mind a little.
No, because not every brewer is like that. Because I met Carl, the head owner of Manhattan Project. He doesn't believe in cellaring because he drinks whatever he wants to drink whenever he wants it.
Well, it's not that. A brewer would not release a beer if they didn't think it was drinkable the second you bought it. So if you're saying that you need to wait 3 to 6 months on it, you're telling the brewer that they should have waited 3 to 6 months to release it.
Well, they don't know that. The brewers, 100%, I'll tell you this, from my experience being brewers, they make the beer that they think is best, but that's their opinion, and then you as a consumer have the right to make an opinion of it. Saying it has a little too much of the alcohol back flavor, but if you hold it for 2 months, it dials down and opens up the flavors more. You as a consumer have the right to say whatever.
That's true, but as
depends also on the style we're talking about. I'm talking.
Well, yeah, we're not like putting away like IPAs.
No, I'm talking like barley wines, higher ABV alcohol-based beers.
I still, if a beer is released, it's meant to be drank that day. Period. Not meant to be held, not meant to be held to lower the heat.
I agree to that to an extent, to the point of I'm trusting the brewer. If he's giving it to me to drink it, I'm gonna drink it. I'm gonna trust him. But you as a consumer, let's say we had a barley one that you bought 6 months ago. It's like, I've been saving it for 6 months because right at the 6 month part, I feel like it opens up the flavors more. Let's take your opinion on that. Because A, I haven't tried it yet. B, your flavor profile is different from even the guy who's making it.
But that's, again, the brewer is making it that's how he wants the beer to taste.
Yeah.
So if you want to change it, you want to age it, you want to do anything like that, that's your prerogative and you have the authority to do so.
But you also, brewers, but it's like saying the brewers don't make bad beers then, because they brew to their taste. They make a beer, you have the right to say it's not good beer.
I agree. Now, at least for Better on Draft, like we are 100% honest. Like we will tell someone we don't like your beer. And now we won't say your beer sucks.
Well, that's why I think I changed. Yeah, that's why I said earlier, where my opinion changed. I stopped saying beers suck versus there's some off flavors and trying to be more understanding.
Well, it's not even not off flavors as much as it's not to my palate or not to my liking, not to my style.
It's not my style, but you can.
So I don't like it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means I don't like it. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people that listen to Better on Draft, the guests that come in, they understand because they've all listened. Usually they listen to a couple episodes before they come in. If they've never listened before, they're like, this makes a lot of sense because you are, this is your flavor. So if I don't like an IPA but everybody else does, it's probably a good IPA. But if I'm telling you your brown ale isn't good, there's something wrong with your brown ale.
I feel you. That's where I think we're agreeing, but kind of having a small disconnect. Where I'm the same way. I'm a big stout proponent, so I'm very particular about my stouts, and that's where I feel comfortable judging the most. Everything else, like Gozas, the IPAs, I'm not a fan of, but I can tell you, this is a well-made beer. I can tell you where you're going with it, but for me, not for me, or I won't buy it. But it's a well-made beer. I will always try to critique things honestly.
Oh yeah, like I know Two Hearted is a well-made beer, but I'll never drink it again.
That's completely fine. I'm probably in the same boat with you because I'm not a big fan of IPAs. But I would say, again, because I'm not a fan of it, I have the right to say I'm not a fan of it. Yeah. Even though the brewer made it to where he suggested is the best style that he could make, or what he was intending for. Same thing with aging. If you choose, you're saying that the beer the guy was making, if you enjoy it, but you enjoy it more 6 months from now, it's your own palate. I'm not saying it's not the best. I'm not saying you're right and he's wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, but you as a consumer can make that subjective observation.
So you've been doing this for 40, how many episodes? 40?
I think we got over 100 episodes, but Drunken Public's only 40.
Okay. what is your favorite interview? Like, for people who are better on draft fans that are listening to you for the first time because they're listening to this show.
Oh, my favorite interview?
What is, like, if I said, hey, what is the one you're selling me on? Because you got to have one you're going to sell me.
Yeah, as far as like who we are as a show and the concept, and my favorite that
It could also be the best content you've had.
The best content, anything with Manhattan Project. So like episode 34, I believe it is, with Misty, his wife, who runs all the social media and runs all the planning, and Carl was a phenomenal podcast. If you want to go deep into our archive, where we just called Dallas Beer Talk, the first brewers we ever had on was Petty Colas, which you could see how brutally honest I was, and it was not critiquing anything. I was just saying it's not for me. I enjoy that. It's funny. It's very hard to listen to as far as like beer consuming stuff. I'm just like, nah, get this out of here. It's not for me. But those are that one. Dallas Beer Talk. Dallas Beer Squad. That was a fun episode. I think those are the ones I had the most fun with, the most fun editing, because there's so many jokes that we had going back and forth, and I enjoy it. And that thing represents the show. That's because it's very casual. I want to introduce you to these people who make beer or support the community. You know, I always tell the brewers when I talk to them about coming on, I'm not a beer reviewer.
So I think you said that's going to do it for us. I hate to cut the show.
Well, when I want to wrap it up, I usually ask an ending question.
Yeah.
I try to end it to my guests. So someone like you, that's similar on my end of the beer podcast game.
Yeah.
I always try to ask, for Texas, what do you like to see the craft community grow to or change? For you, it would be Michigan. Like, what do you like to see it grow to or change?
So this is what I want to see, and this is what I hope to see, because this is what I think will save what we call like the potential craft beer bubble. I want to see more breweries, but I want them to replace the local dive bars.
Yes.
So making, having the capability of bringing in either making your own lagers, because obviously that's a bigger pain, or bringing in lagers, the nice easier drinks, maybe a Pilsner or a Kolsch or a Czech. But making these small, going into business to stay in business, make a profit, but not going in to sell to ABI. Going in to make a profit, stay solvent, selling your beer, your food, and that's what I want to see within our community. So yeah, sure, we're at 7,500, 7,600 breweries in the country. I want to see 5 figures, but I want people to be more cognizant of their growth and simply grow to a level of only 90 to 100 barrels a year, and that's it.
I mean, that's poetic. It's beautiful. Similar. I don't want to reference another podcast there while you're here, but I know nothing about beer. Kind of said the same thing. But he did it. This history of why beer in Europe is different from beer here. They got away from the family market. If you have more brewers, especially local brewers, you can drink, and usually 90% of them are family friendly. I have yet to find one on a consistent basis that is not family friendly.
We have a couple up in Michigan, but
not on a consistent basis. There's always few.
Yeah.
I've been to a few in California, but it's rare to have that one. Usually, when you have a place, let's say this was a brewer, they open their doors, they have family friendly events, they have family friendly evenings, as well as you have drinks. So I like that. I agree with you. The craft beer bubble won't exist unless people understand what they get in for.
So hold on. I think there is a bubble, but I think it's going to pop, but I think it's those mid-tier breweries that are going to suffer the most. The ones that aren't as big as your Bells and your Founders, your
Agreed.
Sam Adams, Yuengling, those are the safe ones.
Agreed.
It's the ones that are in the 30s, 40s, 50s. Your Firestone Walker, your New Holland, your breweries that distro big enough to where they're fighting tooth and nail for shelf space, and they might not have the money to fight when there's even more competition.
But here's the thing. This is why you're right, and why I say that's okay. I enjoy local pubs. I don't know if you ever traveled to Europe before.
I have not. 2020. I have my work's giving me a 30-day sabbatical. So I am going to do Japan for the Summer Olympics, and then I am going to traverse Europe for 3 weeks. We actually have one of our headquarters in Dublin, Ireland. So for the last week, I'm going to go to Ireland, and then I'm going to come home.
Oh, you're doing better than me because I'm trying to partner with another traveling beer group. I did a podcast a few episodes ago. Try to do a European beer tour with them. But I like European beer things. They don't call them pubs. They call them not bars, but pubs. It's just because it's local. Now, with the problem with like New Holland, I love them, right? Whenever the bubble does happen, depending on how they're structured,
They'll be sold.
they'll be lose or win. That's the only thing. Most likely lose because they're mid-tier, like you said, and honestly they are. But it's nothing because that's bad. It's not a bad thing to be mid-tier. But what I would like to see is more hyper-local breweries.
Yep.
Super smaller, super like that, and that's what I think will be better off the long run. But
Eight taps, a mismatch of everything.
Yeah.
Either, I don't know if you guys have like bring your own food type breweries
Yeah.
where people just bring their own food.
Bring
in
whatever
'cause
you
they
from
don't have their
outside.
food. Yep.
Yeah.
Those types, or if you have your food program, great. Just make sure it's a good food program.
Yeah.
But if not, like there's a point where if you're a brewery, at least in Michigan, either bring your own food or have an on-point food program.
Yes.
There's no half-assing your food program, because if you half-ass it, people won't go because they want food at any brewery, because the food will increase. Not only most of those people will buy another beer that they're there, but they'll also buy food. So you can have a higher food cost even because you're going to be turning around more liquid.
No, that's true. I like it. But yeah, you're right. There is going to be a bubble. I don't think it's a bad thing, but we'll see. But I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm still new to it. Obviously, you've been drinking craft beer longer than I have, but I'm still new to it. I'm hopeful.
Probably for, I mean, if you include my Killian's days, probably 13 years.
Yeah, just get included. Why not?
I mean, I was underage, but
Don't want.
what are they going to do now?
Yeah, who's gonna arrest me now? But I don't know. On that note, man. First of all, I really appreciate you coming on this podcast.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me.
I really appreciate the things you guys are doing on your end. And what I would love to do is to give the follow up on your podcast, baby, as far as learning a little bit more about Michigan beer.
Yeah.
I might have to take a road trip up there.
Probably easier to fly. But if you're in Detroit, obviously I'll put you up. I'll take you to all the hot spots. I'll get you to Old Nation for the Motherland Founders.
We go to Founders. I love it.
Yep, that's only so in Detroit, which is on the east side of the state. To get all the way to Founders, there's one like a mile and a half from my house, but the main brewer is about 2.5 hours away. But on that drive down 96, there's about 50 breweries we can hit.
Damn.
So I learned, we did our first road trip, we did the 96 corridor, and we realized that even in this little area that we were, like a 10-mile strip, we but we could only have so many, 15 brewers. Just in this little 10-mile strip.
I wish I was here. I wish I was here in Dallas.
So, yep, that's
I
all
look
the way
forward to
from Detroit to Grand Rapids. But I tell you what, come during the festival weekend. So we got 4 of them, so you have 4 choices. So we got Founders, or Grand Rapids in February, Ann Arbor in July, the UP in September, which is fucking beautiful, and then Detroit in October. So usually there's football during that time. So I have a lot of friends that are coming up because it's the University of Michigan Notre Dame game that weekend, which is a huge weekend.
It's a massive weekend, so I probably won't be there that weekend.
A lot. Well, so Detroit and Ann Arbor is an hour away almost. So if you're in Detroit, a lot of people they'll be at the Friday part of the festival because the festival's 2 days long. So they'll be at the Friday night festival and not the Saturday festival.
Because the game.
Yep.
But Michigan fan, I would assume.
Absolutely not.
Spartan fan?
Nope.
No, that's Michigan, yeah.
I mean, Spartan's still Michigan State. Michigan's the Wolverines. I'm an ACC fan.
Okay.
It's all about the U.
Okay. I mean, big up to you. Big shots. On that note, on that beautiful note, we got more videos coming soon. Links in the description to where you can find them. Please follow them on all social media.
Better on Draft Facebook, Better on Draft Instagram, Better on Draft Twitter, BOD Podcast on Untapped. You can find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes. We have 2 different streams on iTunes. We have our archive, which has all of our old episodes, and then a regular one, which has all of our up-to-date episodes. So definitely check out both of them. And betterondraft.com.
These guys are definitely fancier than me, so definitely support them, watch them. Also, support Taps on Caps. Follow him on all social media. You can see this beautiful background. It has Texas. It has all the information on Louisville right here. It says Louisville Party Online. These are hops right here, different parts of the hops. So Taps on Caps is awesome. Follow them, please. On that note, guys, don't drink and drive. Take a lift. Peace. Thank you, sir.